Earthbound by Artemis Greenleaf. Chapter 11. Trust. When I got back to the farm, I went straight to Una. I told her about Henk and how he had got the address of Haunted Planet's studio. She frowned at me. "You should be more careful, child, who you speak to. Urisk aren't common here. They're mostly in Scotland. They are all right, if they have a mind to be. There are other creatures out there that are fair dangerous. Just because you're a ghost doesn't mean you can't be harmed." It wasn't that I didn't believe Una. I just didn't understand. I suppose it's like when you're little and your mother tells you not to touch the hot stove. You don't take it seriously until you get burned. If only I'd realized how close I was standing to the fire. Henk told me to be careful about telling my name. Why? "It is said that your name binds you. If someone knows your real name, they have a power over you, if they want it. If you're going to be ranging about the countryside, you might want to think up a nickname for yourself, just in case you're asked." I didn't really want to think about it. I just wanted to say something so Una was appeased. Well, when I was alive, my eyes were blue, and my name is Skylar, so how about Sky Blue? Una shrugged. "As long as you can remember it, child." I think she was still cross with me. "What did Connell tell you about our visit with Granwal? Did he say she told me to spy on Rodney Aldrich?" "Yes, he did. I don't like that idea, but I'm sure you'll have none of my advice." Una gave me a hard look. "Skylar, I understand your concern about parasites. Wicked, vile things they are, but not so hard to get rid of as you might suppose. I think we should all just stay out of sight when this Aldrich character comes round. He will find nothing and be on his way." Sounded like great advice. It would have been easy to take it. I even wanted to take it, but I couldn't. I had to go. I didn't see any other choice. I couldn't risk having any parasites, or lower astrals or whatever, around to hurt Sheridan. Dad seemed to be just the right kind of host for them. I didn't want him hurt either, nor Una, Connell, Bagan, Connie, Neem, or Brownie, the dog that came round from time to time. My mind was made up. Now I just had to figure out how to get to Knocknaray. "Where's Connell?" "Out." "Oh. Why did he have to be out when I needed his help?" I went outside. Maybe Shaggy Brownie would come to play fetch while I was waiting. Dusk was settling on the farm, and the shadows and blowing wind distorted the shapes of familiar things. The wind rarely died down, but it did take breaks for a few seconds here and there. During one of these lulls, I was sure I heard someone call my name. "Skylar! Skylar!" I started to go out towards the field. "Hey, Sheila," who was my friend Bagan. He mostly stays outside. I turned around. "Hello, Bagan. Did you just call me? I was sure I heard my name." "No. Must have been the wind. I didn't hear anything." You're probably right. Maybe I didn't have to wait for Connell after all. Bagan, my friend. My very clever friend. You know how to travel the lays, don't you? Course I do, Sheila. Why? He tilted his head to one side. I have a tiny little problem. I measured out a couple of millimeters between my left thumb and index finger. I need to get to Knocknarea. Knocknarea? You visiting the cairn? He put his hands on his hips. No, I'm actually going to Cambridge. Cambridge? I might as well have said Mars. That's all the way to the back of Bourke. What's down there, Sheila? Rodney Aldridge's studio, where they make Haunted Planet. I gazed up at him through my bangs, trying to look pitiful. You're dead set against him, aren't you? Why? He took his fists off his hips and crossed his arms. He wasn't buying the soulful act. I met a lady, a ghost lady at Doyle's. She said that Aldridge had been at their castle and conjured up some nasty entity, so they all had to leave. Plus, he attracts parasites. She also said, I looked away from Bagan down at the dirt, that he might actually be some use in getting rid of ghosts who hadn't been around for centuries. No one else seems to be very worried. Even though Connell took me along on his visit to see Granoil, I think it was just to humour me. Maybe they don't care if I get exorcised. He patted the top of my head. Skylar, you know that's not so. Una, she loves you like her own daughter. If Connell didn't care for you, he'd never have taken you with him for a visit with his old auntie. You and me, we're mates, right? Yeah, I suppose. Now, here's what I think will happen. Haunted Planet will show up, and we'll all lay low. Nothing will happen. They'll go away, and she's all apples. His thick beard moved, so he must have been smiling at me. All apples? Is that good? It's perfect. He patted the top of my head again. He was worse than Una. Bagan, what about the parasites? It's fair dinkum. You don't want to go up there and give 'em a cuddle. But what I hear is that they're kind of dumb and slow. I don't think they're much to get fussed over, Sheila. I wasn't convinced. Maybe Bagan was right. Maybe I was upset at nothing. But I couldn't shake this dark shadow of dread that loomed over me. Will you still take me to Knocknarea? No worries. I've got some mates up in Knocknarea. I'll show you up there and wait till you're ready to come back. It's a bit tricky, going up there. When can you go? Is now good? Any tick of the clock, Sheila. I'll go and tell Una. I won't be a moment. Right. I'll just be out here. I glided into the house looking for Una. She was in the kitchen, rearranging some glasses in the cupboard. Sheridan was the only one who ever noticed, in spite of all my dad's ghost hunting mania. Una, Bagan said he'll take me up to Knocknarea. I've got to go. I know you think you need to. I just worry for you. But Bagan will take good care of you. Almost as good as Connell. She smiled at me, a wistful smile that stopped well short of her eyes. I'm off then. See you soon. Good luck, Sky Blue. I smiled at her and dashed for the door. I'd already forgotten about the nickname. All ready then? Bagan asked. Let's go. We started off towards the village. On the way, I remembered the first time I met Bagan, my poor, sad friend. It started with the funeral. I would not recommend attending your own funeral. Mama and Dad were the only ones there, except for the priest and the pallbearers. I didn't know any of them. They were volunteers from the church, and they didn't hang around long. The sexton, waiting to supervise the backhoe crew, lurked near the back door of the church in a green rain slicker and wellies. I watched as raindrops slapped the spray of white flowers on top of the white willow wicker casket and splattered mud on the dainty pink bows along the side. I thought it was naff. I mean, wicker. Really. But like my body, it was sustainably produced and biodegradable. Just what I'd expect from Eden and Luke. The whole thing was gloomy and depressing. I couldn't tell if Dad was crying. He stood in the rain looking like a drowned rat because Mama and her huge belly took up the whole umbrella. It didn't help that she went into labour halfway through, and they left to go to hospital for 3 days. After they left, the priest hurried through the ritual, telling the raindrops about ashes and dust and heaven. They ignored him, pooling on the ground and clinging to the wicker. As soon as he started squelching back to the church, the sexton sent out the backhoe crew. They made short work of scraping the pile of soaking earth onto the small wicker box in the deep wet hole. The day after my burial was a rare sunny one. I think it might have even been warm, but I don't know. Once you lose your body, you also lose your sense of touch. I was outside, walking around, looking at some of the small pearl-pink roses growing under the kitchen window, trying to cheer myself up. I heard a sound behind me, like wind in pine trees. Just one problem. There are no pine trees here. I turned around, and there was a man standing there. Actually, the ghost of a man, with a wild, bushy beard and long, matted hair. I thought I should be frightened of him, but I missed all the sensations of fear. No prickling hairs, no dry mouth, no tingling spine. The trousers that peeked out from under his tattered wool coat were stained and ragged. Wiry, beetling brows highlighted how sunken his large, dark eyes were. I didn't recognize his accent. It wasn't Scottish or Irish, but it was almost English. He told me he was Australian. His starving Irish father had been sent to the prison colony in Australia for stealing bread. He also introduced me to the ghost dog, who stops by the farm from time to time. Bagan had named him Brownie. Bagan told me about his life in Australia after his parents had died of old age and his wife died in childbirth. I never did find out whether he was having me on with this story. Since I had no family left, I was free as air. I'd heard there was some gold found in Gundagai, so I went out prospecting. It was hard work, and it took a while, but I finally had a strike. I got mine just before the start of the gold rush of 51. Once old Ed Hargrave found a speck of gold at Bathurst, there were more diggers than roos. Roos? Kangaroos. I think I once had a book with a picture of a kangaroo. Is a kangaroo kind of like a giant mouse? Well, it's more like a giant rabbit. You know, Sheila, legend has it that when Captain Cook first landed in Australia, he and his crew saw strange animals hopping around. One fella walked up to the first Aborigine he saw and said, "Hey mate, what's that thing over there?" as he pointed to a roo. The Aborigine said kangaroo. But that Aborigine, he didn't speak any English. Kangaroo means, "I don't understand you." We talked for ages. He made me laugh, and he made me want to cry. His father had told him how beautiful Ireland was, and he wanted to see it for himself. His gold strike had left him with plenty of money, and he went on what he called a walkabout. But highwaymen robbed him, even taking his map, and that's how he ended up here. Bagan told me he'd wandered around for hours without seeing a living soul. I thought I could just backtrack and get back to Galway where I had my money in the Bank of Ireland, but I got lost and turned around. I finally saw this farmhouse and I knocked on the door. The place had been abandoned for some time, at least by the non-deads. I stayed here a while. There was an old kitchen garden with a few things still struggling to grow in it. One night I was sitting by the hearth. I had a terrible squeezing pain in my chest and I couldn't breathe. I passed out. Next thing I knew, it was day. I felt fine and I got up. It took me a while for me to realise that I'd carked it. It wasn't until I saw a rat running by with a piece of my shirt I knew something was up. I'd wondered if that was worse or better than going to your own funeral. "Sheila, we're here." Bacon's voice startled me out of my daydream. I studied his old clothes for a moment. He was a kind soul, but he was one of those people who just couldn't win for losing. That would make anyone crazy after a while. Earthbound by Artemis Greenleaf. This work is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivative Works 3.0 United States license. Environmental sound effects used in this podcast were provided by www.freesound.org. Please check artemisgreenleaf.com for details of specific samples used. If you'd like to leave a comment or learn more about the other projects in progress, please go to www.artemisgreenleaf.com.
Dandelion girl, watch her play